Don't play this game. If you're watching this video, it means I failed. Delete it. Delete all the files. Destroy your phone if you have to. Don't look for it. Don't say its name. Because once you see her through the screen, she can see you in real life. She's right behind me now, isn't she? That scratching sound. Oh God, she's in the room. The video cut abruptly, leaving only a blood-curdling scream lost in a blizzard of black and white static. That was the last video ever posted to the Urban Explorers channel by Static.Alex, a YouTuber specializing in abandoned places, before he vanished 3 weeks ago. To most, it was just a failed publicity stunt. But to Liam, a computer science major with a passion for internet mysteries, it was an invitation. Liam and his close-knit group of friends treated online legends as their personal playground. There was Chloe, a pragmatic film student who was never without her camera, perpetually shooting a documentary on digital age fanaticism. There was Noah, a history major and certified bookworm, who could trace the origins of any ghost story through dusty online archives. And finally, there was Maya, a sensitive art student who often got bad vibes from the places they researched, a trait Chloe always dismissed as an overactive imagination. "Listen up," Liam said, turning his laptop toward the group in their dorm's common room. On his screen was a deep web forum. The thread was titled, "Echoes of Sorrow's Hollow Beta Test." It was described as an experimental, unreleased, augmented reality game. There was no developer, no official website, just a single installation file posted by an anonymous user accompanied by a single line of text. "For those who aren't afraid of the echoes." Sorrow's Hollow? Noah frowned, his thumbs already flying across his phone's keyboard. Sounds familiar. Probably a made-up name to sound cool, Chloe said, pointing her camera lens at Liam's screen. This is exactly what I'm talking about. An urban legend being manufactured in real time. It's perfect for the film. Maya shivered. I don't like that name. It sounds heavy. Liam grinned, the thrill of the hunt overriding any sense of caution. All the more reason to try it, right? Tonight, we play Echoes of Sorrow's Hollow. Chloe, get your camera ready. We're either going to debunk this thing, or at the very least, have a fun night. He clicked the download button. The progress bar began to crawl across the screen. None of the four of them knew that they weren't just downloading a game. They were accepting an invitation from a long-forgotten place, a place where the echoes of pain had never truly fallen silent. The game launched without a menu or tutorial. Their phone screens simply became a camera feed of the room, but overlaid with a cold, grayscale filter. In the top corner, a strange symbol appeared, a circle with 3 hash marks slashed through its center. Below it, a single line of text, "Listen to the echoes." At first, it was underwhelming. Through their phones, they could hear faint whispers and ghostly creaks that Chloe insisting were just pre-programmed sound effects. Occasionally, a transparent, shadowy form would flicker across the screen, too fast to register. Pretty impressive for a leaked beta, Liam admitted, panning his phone around the room. The spatial recognition for the AR is solid. It's boring, Chloe yawned, lowering her head. It's cheap jump scare tactics. But then, things began to change. The experience stopped being generic. It became personal. Noah was pointing his phone at an old bookshelf when a crackling voice suddenly issued from its speaker. It wasn't a generic whisper, but a clear, historical audio recording. 17 men were trapped when Tunnel 3 collapsed. There is no hope for their recovery. May God have mercy on their souls. Noah flinched. He'd never heard that clip before. It wasn't in any local history database he'd ever studied. At the same time, Maya let out a sharp cry and dropped her phone. There's something in the corner! Liam and Noah quickly aimed their phones at the corner she was pointing to. Through the app's filter, they saw it. A tall, skeletal shadow standing there, silent and unmoving. But when they looked with their own eyes, the corner was empty. Chloe, with a documentary's instinct, lifted her professional camera. Through her high-quality lens, the corner was also empty. "It's only showing up in the app, Maya," Liam said, though his own heart had begun to hammer against his ribs. But Maya shook her head, her eyes welling with tears. "No, it's watching us." The true moment of dread came when Chloe reviewed the footage she'd just shot. On her camera's playback screen, she could clearly see the four of them in the room. And as she panned over to the window, an image appeared that made her blood run cold. Outside, rain was streaking down the glass, but on the fogged-up pane, a symbol had been drawn. From the outside, clear and sharp. A circle with 3 hash marks slashed through its center. "Wait a minute," Noah whispered, his voice trembling. "We're on the 4th floor. Who could have drawn that on the window?" They all looked at the real window. The glass was clear, save for the rivulets of rain. But the image on Chloe's camera remained, undeniable digital proof that something had been right outside, watching them in silence. The game wasn't a game anymore. It was starting to bleed through. They all looked at the real window. The glass was clear, save for the rivulets of rain. But the image on Chloe's camera remained. Undeniable digital proof that something had been right outside, watching them in silence. The game wasn't a game anymore. It was starting to bleed through. In the days that followed, the line between the game and reality began to dissolve. The strange symbols started appearing everywhere, scrawled in the dust on a library book, carved into the bark of a tree on campus, glimpsed in the static of a flickering TV screen. They felt like the territorial markings of an unseen predator. They all started having the same recurring nightmare. They were walking through a dark, cold forest, stalked by a woman in a tattered, old-fashioned dress. They could never see her face, only her long, dark hair and her gaunt hands, which were constantly moving, as if weaving or knitting something in the empty air. Maya was hit the hardest. She lost weight, and dark circles formed under her eyes. She insisted she could see the weaving woman, even when she was awake, a fleeting shadow at the edge of her vision, always vanishing the moment she tried to look directly at it. Liam, instead of being scared, grew obsessed. He believed this was the most sophisticated ARG ever created, a sprawling project using the real world as its platform. "We have to figure out the rules," he'd mutter, his eyes glued to his laptop, where he was trying to decompile the game's code. "It's leading us somewhere. There has to be an endgame." It was Noah who found that somewhere. After sleepless nights spent combing through forgotten digital archives, he found the truth about Sorrow's Hollow. It wasn't a fictional name. It was a real place in the remote mountains of West Virginia, a once prosperous coal mining town that had been wiped off the map after a horrific disaster in 1923. "A methane explosion," Noah explained, his voice low. "It collapsed the main shaft, burying over 100 miners alive. But that's not the worst part. The explosion triggered a landslide that buried most of the town. Very few people survived to tell the tale." He pulled up a grainy black and white photo of an old newspaper clipping.
among the names of the presumed dead, was one that made them all go cold: Ilora. She was the wife of one of the mine foremen, a reclusive woman the town had ostracized, whispering she practiced an ancient form of folk magic. The story went that on the night before the disaster, she had performed a ritual in the woods trying to save her husband from a strange illness. She vanished along with the town. "This game isn't an ARG," Noah concluded, his face pale with horror. "It's a reenactment, or a curse." At that exact moment, all four of their phones buzzed in unison, a new notification from the Echoes app. The screen showed only a map, pinpointing a desolate location in West Virginia, and a final line of text: "Come to the source. Break the echo, or become part of it." They looked at each other, fear and indecision warring on their faces. But they knew they no longer had a choice. The curse had latched onto them. Like Static Alex, the vanished YouTuber, they understood that the only way out was to go further in. "Let's go then," Chloe said, raising her camera, her voice a forced attempt at steadiness. "Let's go to Sorrow's Hollow. At least we'll get an ending for the movie." The drive to Sorrow's Hollow felt like a pilgrimage into the heart of darkness. The deeper they drove into the Appalachian Mountains, the more the modern world peeled away, replaced by ancient forests and dying small towns. Finally, their phones lost service. The last bar's signal vanished. They were completely and utterly alone. Sorrow's Hollow wasn't a town anymore. It was a skeleton being consumed by nature. Decrepit, rotting log cabins slumped into the earth, choked by weeds and strangling vines. A heavy, oppressive silence hung over everything, broken only by the wind whistling through empty window frames. The moment they stepped out of the car, their games came alive in a new, terrifying way. The AR was no longer just showing them ghosts. It was becoming the ghost.
When Liam aimed his phone at a collapsed house, the AR screen showed the building as it was in the past, whole and with lights glowing in the windows. He could see silhouettes moving inside. Chloe, through her camera, heard the phantom laughter of children echoing from a rusted-out playground. Noah saw the apparitions of miners, their faces smudged with coal dust, walking straight through them on the main road, their eyes hollow and filled with despair. The line between augmented reality and spectral reality had completely erased itself. The Echoes no longer needed their phones to manifest. They began to hear the chink of pickaxes from the surrounding hills, to smell gunpowder and coal smoke on the air. The ghost town wasn't just a location, it was a scar in time, and they were being pulled back into its final, agonizing moments. It was Maya who saw her with her own eyes first. As they passed the town's ruined church, she stopped dead, her eyes wide with terror. "She's there," she whispered. They all followed her gaze. Standing beside a crumbling, unmarked tombstone was a woman. She wore a long, gray, tattered dress, her tangled black hair obscuring her face. She did nothing, just stood there, her gaunt hands in constant motion, her long skeletal fingers weaving an invisible tapestry in the air. It was the weaving woman from their nightmares, Ilara. As they stared, She slowly lifted her head. They couldn't see a face, only a void of absolute darkness beneath her hair. But they felt her gaze, a cold, hateful stare filled with a bottomless hunger. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she dissolved into the air like a wisp of smoke. "She's real," Chloe stammered, lowering her camera, truly afraid for the first time. "This is all real." That night, they took shelter in the remains of an old general store. They didn't dare sleep. They huddled together, listening as the ghost town came alive around them. The sound of a tinny, out-of-tune piano from a collapsed saloon, the cry of a phantom infant, and the soft, scratching footsteps just outside their crumbling door. The game was no longer guiding them. Now they were trapped inside it. As dawn broke, a thick, unnatural fog rolled in, blanketing Sorrow's Hollow and making it feel even more otherworldly. Their phones, silent all night, lit up one last time. A single point of light pulsed on the map, located at the collapsed entrance to the old mine. The text appeared. "The heart of the echo awaits." They knew it was where they had to go. It was where it all began, and perhaps the only place it could end. The mine entrance was a black scar on the mountainside, partially blocked by a landslide of rock and rotting support timbers. A cold draft breathed from within, carrying the scent of damp earth and coal. "We can't go in there," Maya said, her voice choked with panic. "It's not stable." "What other choice do we have?" Liam shot back, his own voice tight with resolution. "Stay out here and wait for her to pick us off one by one?" One by one, they squeezed through a narrow opening, switched on their flashlights, and stepped into the darkness. The mine was a maze of claustrophobic tunnels held up by decaying wooden beams. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the air was so thick it felt hard to breathe. And here, in the bowels of the earth, Elara's presence was suffocating. She was no longer a fleeting glimpse. She began to torment them, using their own fears and regrets against them. Liam found himself in a university admissions office, being rejected by his dream school over and over, his greatest fear of failure playing out in an endless loop.
Chloe found herself watching a video on her own camera. It was footage of her own death, attacked from behind by a shadowy figure. The final image being the camera falling to the ground, its lens shattering. Noah was surrounded by the ghosts of the miners. They didn't attack him, but simply stared with accusing eyes, whispering questions he couldn't answer. "Why have you come? You can't save us. You've only brought more souls to this prison." But Maya faced the worst of it. Elara appeared directly before her, her face finally revealed. It was a blank canvas of pale, stretched skin, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. She reached her skeletal hands toward Maya, and Maya felt an irresistible pull to take them, to let her own soul be woven into Elara's tapestry of sorrow. "Don't look at her," Noah yelled, pulling Maya back from the brink. They pushed deeper, drawn by a faint, pulsing blue light at the end of a tunnel. Finally, they entered a massive central cavern, the heart of the mine. In the center of the cavern was not a rock or a mineral vein. It was something alive. A colossal black crystalline structure, the size of a car, was pulsing slowly like a heart, emitting a ghostly blue light. Its surface was covered in thousands of the same symbols from the game.
And plunging deep into the crystal were thick black root-like tendrils that spread throughout the walls of the entire mine. The truth crashed down on them. Ilara didn't create the curse, she found it. This entity, this dark heart, had always been here, dormant beneath the earth. In a desperate ritual to save her husband, Ilara had awakened it, and in doing so had become its first host, its first weaver, a collector of souls to feed its endless hunger. The AR game wasn't made by a hacker. It was the curse's latest evolution, a modern digital lure to draw curious souls to the source. As they stood stunned by the revelation, the entrance to the cavern collapsed, sealing them inside. From the shadows, Ilara emerged, but this time she was not alone. Behind her were the spectral forms of Static Alex and dozens of other victims, their eyes vacant, their bodies moved by invisible strings. "You have arrived," a polyphonic voice echoed, speaking from all the ghosts at once. "You will stay. You will weave your souls into the song of sorrow." The final confrontation was upon them. Liam and Noah threw rocks at the apparitions, trying to distract them, but the stones passed right through. This was not a fight that could be won with physical force. In the chaos, Chloe, who had always viewed the world through a lens, had an epiphany. "The camera," she screamed. "The game. It doesn't hunt us, it hunts our attention. It needs to be watched, to be recorded, to be told to exist. That's how it spreads." She realized the entity, like a virus, required a media host to propagate. Once it was campfire stories and whispered legends. Now it was an AR app. They couldn't destroy the physical heart, but they could sever its connection to their world. "Liam, delete it," Chloe yelled. "Delete everything. Don't just uninstall the app. Factory reset. Wipe the drives clean." It was a crazy, desperate gamble, but it was the only one they had. While Liam and Noah tried to fend off the advancing ghosts, Liam and Chloe pulled out their phones. Their hands trembled as they navigated the settings menus. Factory reset. Erase all data. They hit the confirmation buttons at the same time. The instant the first phone screen went black, Ilara let out a mind-splitting shriek, a sound not of this world. The strings controlling the ghosts began to fray. As the second, third, and finally the fourth phone wiped itself clean, Ilara's form began to disintegrate into a cloud of black dust. The crystalline heart gave one last violent pulse, and its light died. The curse wasn't broken, but they had unsubscribed. They had cut off its channel. A violent tremor shook the mine. They found another fissure in the rock and scrambled out, escaping the belly of the mountain just as the mine collapsed behind them, burying Sorrow's Hollow's secret once more. They had survived. They walked for miles in a traumatized silence, forever changed. They returned to the civilized world, but a part of them would always remain in that ghost town. 6 months later, life had found a semblance of normalcy. Chloe had abandoned her documentary. Noah avoided historical archives. Maya began to paint with brighter colors. Liam sold all his old electronics. One evening, Liam received an email on his new laptop. It was from an unknown address. No subject line, no body text, just a single attachment. The file was named Sorrow's Hollow VR Experience.exe. The curse wasn't dead. It was just upgrading.